All right, so I'm Salma, and my project is Labels Make It Real. So I am using this project to, I'm interested in helping people be more conscious about where clothes come from, who they're made by, and what they're made of. So I would like you all to think about what you're wearing right now and ask yourselves, who made my clothes and what are my clothes made of? And just think if you can answer that instantly or not while I'm going through my presentation. So the fashion industry affects people as well as the planet, and these are some of the facts. So where my inspiration and project began is April 2013. The Rana Plaza building in Bangladesh collapsed and several people died and were injured, and it was the fourth largest industrial disaster in history, and unfortunately it was preventable. So a lot of our clothes are made in buildings like this. I'm sure everyone has an item of clothing that says made in Bangladesh on it. Like if you shop at Zara, even Walmart or Benetton, and many, many more stores had their items made in this plaza. And many workers suffered and lost their lives after being forced to work, even after telling the higher ups that there were cracks in the wall. So this was a big fashion disaster, and they were still forced to work under these dangerous conditions. So other things that were brought to my knowledge about this project was all clothes are handmade, and it's hard because we don't think about it, but somebody has to sit at the sewing machine. So literally every piece of clothes is handmade. So, and some of those hands are small, and 48% of victims of child labor are just 5 to 11 years old. So if anyone has younger siblings or children, even think of your kids or younger siblings working at a sewing machine. It's pretty intense. So worldwide, it's estimated that 152 million children are engaged in these forms of child labor. But it doesn't just affect people, it's also the environment, which is something I'm really passionate about. So 80% of clothes produced end up in incinerators or in landfills, and only 20% are recycled. And then going along with that, every second, the equivalent of one garbage truck of textiles is landfilled or burned. So can we still love clothes after acquiring this knowledge? And personally, I think that the answer is yes, because with Labels Make It Real, we can live in a world where information is available, universal, and most importantly, real. So these are some keywords that I wanted to include. That is the brand Labels Make It Real, which is safe, sure, clean, real, soft, and light. And I wanted to include my mood board for Labels Make It Real because the vibe of Labels Make It Real is neutral, but also luxurious, because in today's world, having access to the honest truth is a luxury. So this is my project statement and the solution to the problems that I've been researching. So I'll just read it. Labels Make It Real is a proposal that comes from the relationships we have with our clothes, the feeling when you put on your favorite sweatshirt, something so special. So why are we not choosing save materials for ourselves? We love our clothes, and our clothes should love us back. We shouldn't be in a relationship with someone toxic, aka that polyester t-shirt you always sleep in. It's never too early or too late to learn more about safety and sustainability in the fashion industry. After all, we all wear clothes. So currently, the FTC's label requirements are to put the fiber content, the country of origin, the manufacturer dealer identity, which would be the brand, and then the care instructions. So with Labels Make It Real, we are going to include all of those, but we're also going to include a heart icon, which is our scale. So if a brand receives a dark heart, it means that the they have no information about their supply chain. They maybe are using some forms of greenwashing, and this would also include all fast fashion brands, because my goal is to eliminate fast fashion. And if a brand receives a half heart on a tag, they are at least taking measures to become sustainable, because that's really important to at least have a start, and that they're being transparent about their supply chain. And if a brand receives a pure heart, that means that they're using sustainable materials, they have ethical practices for their workers, and then also if they have any other certifications or accreditations. So the deliverable is a universal label, and here I have the three, which is one with receiving a dark heart, one receiving a half heart, and one receiving a pure heart. So I'm just going to go through what the examples I have. So the one that received a dark heart is a Forever 21 sweatshirt, which was made in China and is 30% acrylic. And Forever 21 is also a fast fashion brand. So that is why I was receiving a dark heart from Labels Make It Real. And in the middle for a half heart is a Patagonia Better sweater, which might be a little bit surprising, but it's made in Thailand and it's 100% polyester, but it's receiving a half heart because they are choosing to say repair, reuse, and recycle this project, but it is still made out of polyester, so that is why I'm receiving a half heart, but they're trying their best, and Patagonia obviously does a lot of really great things. And then receiving a pure heart is a marine layer t-shirt, which was made in the USA by adults, and it's 50% Supima cotton and 50% Tencel modal with micro technology. So it's made in the USA where it's being sold, and it is made out of a sustainable material. So that is why it's receiving a pure heart. And then I've mocked these up on some t-shirts because if this was not happening the way it is, these would have been printed and then stitched into the three items that I have here. But right now I have mock-ups, and as you can see, there's the heart rating, and then also at the bottom it says learn more and visit labelsmakeitreal.com. So this is labelsmakeitreal.com. So if you were to see this on a tag, you would go to the website to figure out about the universal label and what it means. And then you could also figure out what the rating is for the item of clothing that you would like to buy. So this is the heart scale broken down, which is what I showed you before. So if consumers like us demand for safe, ethical, and sustainable fashion practices, companies will understand the value of being ranked a pure heart on Labels Make It Real scale. And the universal label will be on every piece of clothing, and that will create a more ethical, sustainable, and truthful economy for all. Thank you.
Feels funny clapping in a room by myself. Great job, Salma. Thank you. While we're talking, do you think you could go to a screen that shows the labels again?
Yeah.
Awesome. So how did you become interested? Oh, I know you talked about the building collapse in Bangladesh. Have you always been interested in fashion or sustainability, and how did those kind of evolve?
Yeah, so my roommate is a fashion major, and I've always been close to the fashion industry because I'm a working model, and it's also been like hard for me to have jobs knowing that like some of the places that or pieces that I've worn were not made ethically or sustainably. So that's always hard, but I've always been really into fashion, and I think it's important because like I love shopping, but I know that it's like the worst thing for me to do sometimes. So that's like I guess where my inspiration came from is like I have totally participated in the fast fashion industry, and now I'm realizing that I don't want to anymore.
So I think this project is a super idea, and it reminds me a little bit of the Whole Foods scale for the meat and seafood. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Um, so if you can look it up online also, but if you go to the store, the butcher counter and the seafood counter, there's a scale of the level of sustainability of certain meats and seafoods, um, from conventional to all organic and
Yeah.
whatnot, and the treatment of the animals and where they come from. And so um, it's similar. It has more levels than three, but it reminds me a little bit of that, which is really nice because it helps people make decisions not only just superficially, like I like this shirt or I like this that steak looks good, but um, it brings more attention to the supply chain of whatever it is you're consuming, whether it is clothes or food.
Yeah.
That's really great. I'm wondering if the idea here was, it looked like in your mock-ups that this would be a replacement label
Mm-hmm.
for clothing items, not in addition to, right?
Yeah. So what it would be, like how it would work in real life, is that it would basically become the nutrition label of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be universal.
Yeah, I wonder how companies would subscribe to the idea that that it looks like their logo would no longer be part of the label.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or if there'd be room here that companies could put their logo on back on the label, because I feel like that's something that is like from a marketing perspective that they would want to have since
Mm-hmm.
it exists already. But I don't know. Fashion is not my area of expertise, but I'm assuming that's another place for them to tag their clothes with their logo. um, so maybe it would be included here or some kind of collaboration, because I feel like this would require a lot of collaboration between clothing manufacturers, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar that I think to it's almost I like the idea of you trying to make the labels make it real, the brand, but the maker of the clothes, to get them on board, you might have to, sorry, the cat is joining me as well. Um, might, you may have to throw them a bone and say, we'll include your logo, or at least in your content say, made by the Gap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went through a very similar phase where I wanted to try and make, sorry, someone's texting me. I'm just telling them I'm on the phone. Sorry. Where I was trying to be conscious of where I was buying my clothes from, where they were made, and it's really hard. So I think this would be really helpful as a very quick key visual indicator. Okay, this one is meeting those guidelines that I'm trying to subscribe to. So I really like the concept. There was one other point I was going to say. Oh, the only thing that I think might be interesting to think about is the cost implications, right? So everything with with a white heart is most likely going to be more expensive, right? Because it's made in the USA, more expensive materials. A lot of times the reason it gets a black heart is it's not made in the United States and made with cheaper materials. So I'm curious if there's a way, like, how do we still make this, for people who can't afford high-end clothing, how can we make them feel good about what they're purchasing as well? I think would be a really interesting concept. Like, how do we make this accessible and good for all people who can't afford something that might have a white heart? Because I do think there's cost implications there. So I think that's one thing that I would think would be an interesting question to ponder.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a lot of the, um, I guess, backlash I got from this
Mm-hmm.
idea, I would say, in my classes, but the way that I think of it is like you're buying things that will last longer and are better for the environment and I guess better for you in some ways too. So that is how I have thought of it. Like if you were to buy this Forever 21 sweater, maybe it would be $15 and then you'd have to buy another one in 4 months. So if you spend the money up front, it will last you way longer. And if you bought like the Marine Layer t-shirt, you would have that for years and years. And then in that time, for whatever that costs, you will end up spending that on like 5 Forever 21 t-shirts. So that's how I think of it. And I know that that is like true because like the quality for more sustainable materials is a lot better and stronger than for fast fashion materials.
I'm glad you brought that up, Amy, and thank you for the answer, Salma. I think I have that in my notes as you were talking through it too. My notes say cost question mark equitable, and I know this has always been sort of the sticky point with sustainable fashion versus fast fashion is not everybody can afford to spend $150 on a quality sweater. Even I think the mindset is, okay, this sweater could last me, 8 years, and but it's an initial upfront investment that's probably a little expensive for some people. So it's like, okay, I'll just buy this sweater for $15. It might last me this winter. Oh, excuse me.
Joys of kids. Yay. Hi, Mason. So I can kind of take over.
Hold
Do you
on.
want to? Do you need to take a break, Yvette?
Okay.
Do you need to take a little break?
Yeah, thanks, Amy.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go. So can you guys hear me? Yes. So yeah, I think that's a concern, and your answer made it very clear, and it was really good to hear your perspective. I think what that would require then is some education, right? So is there a campaign that you have to educate people on why a white heart, even though it's more expensive, might be the one to buy? Your shirt will last you 5 years rather than 5 months. And so I think that's where it can kind of expand, and then so folks can become educated. Polyester, there's some materials that have chemicals in them. So do you want to sleep in your chemical pajamas? You'd probably say no. So I think that's one thing where this can really expand so that people are educated on why make that investment.
Yeah.
I want to second that too, just right before my son barged in. I think the message could be, if you were to expand on this project, on the labeling too, is I think people will resonate a lot with the child labor part of it. That hits home for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking also about the environmental impact of something being shipped from China and Thailand as opposed to being shipped from California. And maybe there's some kind of footprint that's maybe more visible here, because the three hearts, that makes a lot of sense, but it feels a little bit simplistic. If you're going to be transparent, I think it would be nice to be a little bit more transparent. So maybe there's a little breakdown, sort of like a nutrition label, where nutrition labels don't just say like calories and sugar content, but they also have the vitamin and so it might be nice here, if you're going to do something with that idea of a nutrition label, to also say maybe how many miles it traveled, or how much water it took, or I know this gets into a lot of detail, but maybe something that's not super complicated, but maybe a little bit more detail about maybe the top 3 concerns with something that has a black heart would be like child labor, distance traveled, and chemicals, or, you know, plastic, it's made from plastic or something like that. You know what I mean? And so the idea is great. I would love to see it kind of exploded a little bit more. Does that make any sense? Because it's really interesting to me. My whole research topic, and for the past 11 years has been, 12 years has been, actually more than that now, sustainable design. So this is something that really hits home with me. And so I really think, you know, when you're talking about transparency, to really go full throttle with the transparency.
Okay.
Do folks in the room have any questions? I see a few familiar names, but it's not class, so I can't call on any of you.
Hi, Brenna.
Oh my goodness, I have a background. That's not supposed to be there. There we go. I just wanted to include that I was in Salma's class for the semester, and Salma's research was just very in-depth and awesome to see, because I did not think about fast fashion in that way, but ever since she started this project in January, even last semester, I've been a lot more conscious of the clothes that I buy. So I think Salma's research and just her whole project is very transparent itself, and it does relate to a lot of people, especially like in our demographic.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment. As someone with perspective on the evolution of the project, yeah, you can see the amount of work that goes into this, and you could go down this rabbit hole of research here too, because there's probably so much, and you've probably done so much more than we're seeing. And it's such an important topic. You know, I think if people just have even a little bit of awareness about where their clothes are coming from, it might make them rethink it. I think what might be important to highlight from a marketing perspective is, you know, think about this some more, you know, and the idea of where your clothes are coming from and who's making them. I think that's so important. The benefit of maybe that upfront investment of spending a little bit more on a material that's better made, you know, made by adults and willingly, you know, I think that's super important and something we all need to consider. I'm feeling honestly very guilty about this sweater I'm wearing right now. Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a really great topic, and one that, you know, people think about sustainability or environmental stuff, but not necessarily with clothing and that impact. So I think it's really important work. So I applaud you for tackling that.
And the other thing I want to say really great job on too is at the very beginning of your mood board, you mentioned that you wanted this to be luxurious. And I'm so happy that you did that, because I think that the initial idea or the initial go-to when you're thinking about anything that's sustainable is to kind of go to this craft paper, you know, burlap, kind of, you know, speckled, flecky paper kind of look.
Cross stitch.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that you want this to be luxurious, because I feel like they're not mutually exclusive. You know, you can have luxurious and responsibly made things. So, and I feel like that that relates, you know, a lot of people can relate to that. I feel like a lot of people will be more on board with that, especially the higher end clothing brands. And I feel like that's where it would start. People will be more inclined to pay attention when the larger clothing brands and the common clothing brands get on board with sustainability. So that's really great, and I'm happy that you went that route. Yeah, that's all I have for my thoughts here. I think this is a really wonderful project, and it's nice to see sort of the bridge between fashion and graphic design, and how, you know, one sort of area of design can shake hands with another and support each other. So this is really, really nice to see that almost, you know, that collaborative approach to design. This is really nice.
Thank you.
Great job. Yay, thank you. So let's see if you want to stop your screen share now and give a round of applause to Salma. Hooray, thank you, very good job. I feel like there should be more like hoopla after everybody presents and everybody should start cheering.